Thank you very much. Suresh Prabhu.
Thank you, sir. I really welcome the resolution moved by Mr. Prabhu Kataria, not because he has also Prabhu in his name, but because it touches a very important aspect of unemployment. I am also happy that he has not only talked about unemployment, but also has linked it with another important issue of small-scale industries. Sir, maybe in many ways, these are interrelated issues, as I can talk about it a little later. Sir, we always say that unemployment is a global phenomena, and yes, we should ignore it. Like we many times say that corruption is a global phenomena and should not really bother us, because if India is part of globalization, then unemployment and corruption is bound to be there. So I don't think this is what we really mean by learning from globalization. Sir, this unemployment is an issue which is of great importance not only from economical point of view, but also from social point of view. Those who are unemployed have to really, it is like a social stigma for the entire society when some can say that we are prospering while others are languishing in poverty. The many problems in many parts of our country, particularly northeastern area, eastern part of our country, and also in some other parts which are really backward, and where we see increasing incidents of terrorism, is due to the basic fact that we cannot provide jobs and we cannot create more employment to those who are seeking it in job market. Sir, we have got some very interesting statistics, which is always statistics can prove anything, and we have statistics which says that, this is I am reading from the Center of Monitoring of Indian Economy, CMI, which says that in 1961, we had only 323 unemployment exchanges in the country. 327 in 1961. And in 1995, the number of unemployment exchanges has increased to 891. And the jobs, the people who had really registered themselves as live unemployment as we call them, were 18 lakhs in that year, in 1961, which grew to 372 lakhs, that is 3 crores 72 lakhs 84,000 by the turn of third decade. But sir, this 1995, this is as close as 1995 after 35 years. But sir, this projection and these statistics, when we really try to compare with ground reality, as one of my learned friends said, that in every house there is an unemployed now is the situation, and we know that number of households that we have got in the country, sir, the unemployment must be definitely close to more than 22%, as was assessed by one very reputed agency which did a survey of unemployed in the country. And thus, these problems of unemployment assume a serious proportion, and if not tackled in the shortest possible time, may really assume very serious repercussions in the times to come. And thus, this problem is related to SSI also. Sir, as we know, any job to be created in an economy could arise from three sectors: services, agriculture, or industry, manufacturing. Sir, in last few years, we have seen that the manufacturing sector is growing at a very good rate. It has even grown at a rate of almost 10%, but number of jobs created by this sector has not kept pace with this increase in industrial production. So this is a new phenomena which is taking place in a country wherein we are now going into new technologies, seeking to replace and displace workers and try to make more production efficient, cost efficient by displacing workers, and yes, the increase in jobs in manufacturing sector is going down. So other alarming feature is also the agriculture is not growing at a rate at which it should have grown. In fact, it is not even growing at a rate at which the population is growing. This is another alarming feature which is not part of today's discussion, but so this is another very alarming feature of the economy. The third sector, the services sector, is of course growing, as is growing worldwide, and also creating new jobs. But the jobs which are created in services sector don't relate to the ground realities of unemployment which exist in rural India. And as we know, 70% or 80% of India is rural, and thus we are really concerned about unemployment in that part of the country. Sir, we must now really try to find out solution to this problem, and small scale industries which can really come to play and can really address itself to this situation. Sir, small scale industry is something which can be started by really anybody. There is no entry barrier. As we discussed, Some other industries, we are now creating entry barriers by way of saying that unless you have so much of capital, you cannot enter this sector. Unless you have so much of expertise, you cannot enter this sector. Whereas this particular sector, small scale sector, could be started, could be entered into by everybody, and thus it is very important. But sir, for doing this, as is proposed by some of my honorable friends here, it cannot be done by starting another scheme. Sir, just to illustrate, we have several schemes in the country, and if these schemes were going to solve the problems, there should not have been one person unemployed in the country. Sir, we have got poverty eradication program, we have got rural poverty elevation program, we have got integrated rural development program, we have got Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, we have got employment assurance scheme, we have got urban poverty elevation program, we have got Nehru Rozgar Yojana, we have got PM integrated, Prime Minister's integrated urban poverty eradication program, we have got scheme for slum dwellers, to again in the name of removing unemployment. But sir, all these schemes so far have resulted into a net result. The bottom line is more than 22% of our people are unemployed in the country. And thus, we need to really find out how the small scale industries could survive in the country, because they could solve unemployment problem, they could create purchasing power in the hands of lot many people, more than what is created by starting a manufacturing, creating a manufacturing job in the country in a bigger sector. Sir, one of my learned friend, Mr. Ramesh Chetniwala, has also quoted a very important statistics and a report from International Labour Organization, the ILO, which also illustrates and in fact makes us all concerned about the shape of things to come. And I would also share the same perception about the problems that are going to take place in the country. In that perspective, sir, we must realize how to solve and address ourselves to solve the problems of the small scale industries. One of our earlier speakers, in fact the one who spoke little earlier than this, said that there are several problems pertaining to raw material, pertaining to other areas, so I will not touch them. But sir, one point I would like to mention, which is of a very great importance. One, we passed a law in this very house, making it an offence. If a check issued by a company is dishonored, it becomes a cognizable offence. So the small scale industries who are not paid on time by the companies who buy these goods from them, if they are not paid in time, the small scale industries don't get paid for 9 months, even 12 months, and they really face a serious problem of non-payment. So this is an issue which also needs to be addressed. And even at least for small scale industries, there needs to be some sort of an amendment to give some more, provide some more teeth to this particular legislation, so that the small scale industries could get paid well in time for the problems that of getting over the problems of liquidity. Sir, the another problem of which I think the government must really address itself very quickly is the problem pertaining to infrastructure. So I know the country itself is facing a problem of infrastructure, and the common minimum program of the United Front government says that the requirement of infrastructure, according to its estimate, is $200 billion, which is close to 7 lakh crores, which it intends to meet. I don't know in how many years, because according to the same common minimum program, it says that a country can absorb only $10 billion a year into foreign direct investment, which could go into this. So going by the same estimation, probably we need another 70 years before, or probably another 20 years before we could really solve the problems of infrastructure at today's rate and today's requirement, if $10 billion of investment goes into this sector. But sir, this is a problem of country, but even the small scale industries are really facing a problem infrastructure, as our honorable person who has been blessed, I'll also be lucky enough to be a Minister of Power in the Union government, will also share this perception that power is an important constraint which all these small scale industries are facing. The rates at which they have to buy power from the various electricity boards is ridiculous. They don't have to even, sometimes they have to pay minimum charges when they are not even getting a power. This is an instance which I can quote from the constituency which I represent in this parliament, that some of the underdeveloped areas of Konkan, the industrialists are required to pay electricity charges for which they are not even receiving power. So this is a very ridiculous situation in which we have to really get over this infrastructural bottleneck of the small scale sector, which also means that we have to provide them water, we have to give them roads, etc. And I'm sure the government will really address itself to this, because it is possible that it's like Abhimanyu, that a small scale industrialist will enter the sector because he feels that he can get over his social problems and will not be able to come out because they started a small scale company, he has borrowed from the bank, and now he's not able to work it because there is no infrastructure. And this is what happens many a times, resulting into large closure of small-scale industries, causing sickness into those industries. Sir, we are talking about creating more, we are talking about industrial production going up by 8%, going up by 9%. But we are really not talking about how many of this is coming out of sick units, which is very important because we are a capital-starved country. We always invite foreign capital because our domestic savings are not even 22% of the GDP. We always feel that our domestic savings will not be sufficient to meet the requirements that we have in the country because we don't have enough capital. If that is the case, the amount of money that is invested, the amount of money that is blocked into these small-scale industries, which have become sick now, has to be properly coming into the economy, coming proper into circulation. And yes, we must have an action plan to revive these small-scale industries by infusion of maybe additional capital, maybe by infusion of additional technology, new technology into the sector, which will make them more competitive to face the challenges of the times to come. Sir, I would like to say that we must always march forward. In life, nobody says that you walk forward by looking backwards. This is not, could be the intention of a human life, and that is also true for society. And dynamic society like India could never look back in its march towards prosperity. But we must always learn from history. Sir, in our country, we had a very prosperous village industries not many years ago. Sir, these industries have created so many jobs, not only jobs, but they were the industries which used to create more craftsmen, and the skills of the workers were paid due to, and they were getting jobs, they were creating jobs and also creating a lot of wealth, which was also accepted universally. Sir, these village industries, somehow we have throttled, we have killed, and in the process, we also created a lot of social tension. These artisans, these craftsmen are now migrating to from rural areas into urban centers. They don't know how to work in this revised, changed life, and their life situation, their lifestyle is completely changed. So they are absolutely out of place with the new world, and their skills cannot be utilized by us. So on one hand, we have got persons, we have got artisans who are capable of creating this new wealth, but is not able to use it only because we are not encouraging the village industries. And I would strongly urge the government to make a policy framework in which village industries would get a prominence, would get a place of pride, and this untapped wealth of our own citizens, of our own people, could be brought into national mainstream. Sir, we have got another problem, which I think my friend Mr. Ramesh touched, but I would like to even share it again, is the problem of disguised unemployment, or disguised employment, as you can put it the other way around. So we always talk about so many jobs created every year, so many new wealth created new every year, but sir, this figure that we give has also got an element of disguise, and these jobs which are really appearing on the face of it to be physically employed, they are not a fully employment, and hence we should also address ourselves when we talk about employment, the problem of disguised unemployment. Sir, one important aspect which I am sure has also been touched, I would like to talk it in a little other perspective. Sir, we are talking about, whenever we talk about unemployed, we try to divide them into two broad parts. We say that there are educated unemployed and there are other unemployed. Sir, the education that we provide, which fails to meet the economic needs of the person who has been well equipped to seek job, is a failure of the system. The education has to bring about enlightenment. The education has that definite role to perform. In our ancient culture also, people used to go and worship at Sandipani ashrams so that they could be enlightened. So that was the object of education. In a modern society, we said that education job is to, if you are not educated, you will not get a job. So people were under that misconception. They went to schools, they went to colleges, they went to universities, but their going there has failed them to provide jobs. And sir, therefore, we must divide our education into two broad parts. We must have an education which gives knowledge. We must have education which could provide them jobs. And hence, even at a national level, we must have an education policy which divides education into two broad parts of education for knowledge and education for jobs. And that job education, which could be called as a vocational education, has to be provided at various levels, and particularly so at a village level, utilizing the ancient skills of our craftsmen who have really got it as a part of the genes. Sir, another aspect which I am sure has made or is going to be a point of concern for many of us, is a problem which is arising, which I mentioned, because my another friend who also hails from a similar place. Sir, I belong to a place called Konkan in Maharashtra, which is on the west coast of India. Sir, we have got large number of persons who have been engaged into occupation of fishing. Sir, this fishing business is under serious threat. I know this is directly related to this because this is a small scale activity and which provides tremendous scope for employment is under threat because we have been receiving offshore fishing from foreign trawlers, deep sea fishing from foreign trawlers. Sir, I don't know, when we said that we have got an open house, we never meant that our shores are open for anybody to come in. That was an ancient history. We always welcomed all our guests. But sir, those guests who come and loot us are not the guests that we want in our country. We would certainly like to welcome anybody who comes here to help us out, or if they need help, we can also help them, but not at the expense of the lifestyle of a fisherman who have been really ruined and totally devastated as a result of this new onslaught on their legitimate rights. And I feel that we must have a policy which I am sure the minister concerned would take note of and would like to really get into this. So another point is the every individual. So one private member, I think one of the honorable member, Mr. George Fernandez, has introduced a private member's bill today which seeks to provide or seeks to give a right to every person, a right to work. And I'm glad that one of my other earlier speakers said that we must provide dignity to labor. It is not something that if you're working, that means you are to be looked down upon. The person who really works has to be respected and the right to work has to be taken in that perspective. So sir, those who are seeking work, but a system cannot provide work, has to be given a compensation. It's a foreign concept, it's a Western concept to call it a dole. Whatever name you call it, the nomenclature is not important. What is important is a person wanting to and well equipped to perform a job and is not able to get it, has to be compensated with. And I think this could be also a part of a common minimum program, because this is the minimum common that a person can expect from the society. And as a guardian of this new society that is emerging, I am sure the common minimum program, if it doesn't have this minimum thing, which is so common and which can be commonly shared by anybody, has to be there as a part of the program. And I am sure a Prime Minister, who unfortunately is not present here at this moment, but hailing from a background of a poor peasant, would certainly share this perception more than me, because I cannot claim to be one such person. Sir, I would like to, lastly, before I conclude, before you ring your bell, just try to touch last 2 points, sir. Sir, these are the days of technology, which we cannot overlook the fact. A new technology, the waves of new technology transformation, new technology changes are sweeping our country, and not only our country, but across the globe. And it is often described by many of the scientists, many of the economists, many of the sociologists as the age of technology. So we would not like to lag behind into that also. So the government must have a technology bank, a technology transfer situation in which the small scale industries could access to the world known technologies in that sector, so they could also upgrade themselves into that art of technology. But the technology should be available to the common of the common man, so that he can compete with the big players, the top players and any other player. Sir, we cannot overlook the fact that even United States, a country like United States, which has a largest GDP in the country, the jobs created in that sector, in that country, the more jobs are created in the United States by the small sector than the large industry in that country also. In fact, there is a saying now to say that we want jobs but we don't want Mac jobs, because more jobs are created by McDonald's on hourly basis and there is no confirmed job. So they say that we don't want Mac jobs, the McDonald's jobs, but we want real jobs. And these jobs are provided by the small industries and not by the large industries. So I would say this is a very important thing. We should not forget that our small scale industries also must have access to technology. And so the last point is pertaining to the financial bottlenecks of the small scale sector. Sir, it is always a good desire to start a business, but to make them equipped to run the business is very important. Otherwise, we could take them, and as I said earlier, it will be like an Abhimanyu who enters the fray but doesn't know how to come out of it. To prevent that, so we must really educate every person in the art of running business. This is very important. Many of the banks, we say that banks are not giving money. But sir, the money with the banks, now we know that more than 85 to 90% of the money with the bank, it belongs to us. Because the entire banking sector, barring few private banks and barring few foreign banks, is all nationalized or cooperativized. This sector, money belongs to us ultimately because it's a public money. So funding small-scale industries out of goodwill, out of good feeling is not enough. But what is important is also that this money is well spent, well utilized, creates more wealth, and for that a training to small-scale industrialists is necessary. And I would really urge on the part of the government to do two things. One, sir, there is a need to have venture capital in our country. So when we talk about globalization, we must try to always look at what is happening in the rest of the world. We cannot look in only isolation and say that now McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut are there all over the world, so they also must be in India. Surely, why not? But if we are doing that, then we should not forget that in the United States, there are hundreds and thousands of venture capital companies. There are companies, there are institutions, venture capital institutions, who provide a venture capital to a small scale unit. Sir, anybody wanting to start a business, even there are instances, somebody said that even father refuses to give money to his son because he feels that I have earned it and you are going to waste it. Because I earned it by working and you are going to waste it by doing business. Because even doing business in Indian culture is not something which is really appreciated.
Please conclude.
Yes, sir. I am almost on concluding. Sir, therefore, what is important?
Right. Agreed.
Sir, therefore, what is important is to have venture capital fund. So these venture capitalists give you, because when you go to a bank, want to borrow, the banks can give you 70% or 75% of your requirement. 25% is your equity, which you are supposed to contribute. But the problem in India, which is capital starved, is the people don't have 25%. So where to find this 25% at lower cost? And that money is provided by the venture capitalists. And I think we must encourage more and more companies to start venture capital. So only one or two companies started it. IDBI started it. ICICI ventured into it. I would not even call it they started it, but they tried to start it. But sir, there could be a possibility. We had a scheme in India. We said differential rate of interest at 4%, the banks were required to lend. The difference between the DRI rate and the actual rate was a sort of a subsidy. We have discontinued that scheme. So we can request all foreign banks, all Indian banks, all other banks, that part of the profits could be earmarked and could be used to start, this could be a corpus to start a venture capital fund, which in turn can help lot many small industries to start a business and could create more jobs for themselves and in the process help the country. Sir, I know I am constrained for time. I'll just quickly say another point is we started a small exchange in the country, the OTCI, over-the-counter exchange of India. Sir, the functioning of that exchange, if it is properly done, it could also provide a boon to many small-scale industries wanting to fund their projects by accessing the capital markets. So the capital markets, as we have seen, have grown considerably, resulting into a lot of problems, other problems. But if this access is possible, even to small-scale industries to enter through this route, I am sure it will also help lot many new entrepreneurs to enter this field. And I think the OTCI also needs to be strengthened and streamlined in the times to come. And I would really request you, sir, thank you, sir, for giving me this time. I know I overstepped my time limit, but thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.